You get the first question to the commissioner today.
Yeah, so you asked me this before. I think there are 3 uncomfortable questions that he could be asked today that I think, to me, probably need to be asked. Number 1 is the Rooney Rule, which there were 10 head coach hires. It's all done now. Not one African-American hire. There are only 3 African-American head coaches left. There was only 1 minority hire. That was Robert Saleh to the Titans. So that'd be number 1, is do you feel like you've taken a step back? It also happens to be in the year they canceled the Accelerator. They generally had this networking event for minority coaches in the spring that this year they canceled it. There was some suspicion that that was done because of the deal they were trying to do with the current administration, the merger, right? Like that there were some moving pieces there.
Wait, explain that. The Accelerator.
So, well, I mean, at the very least, there were rumblings out there that while the merger was going through, because the Justice Department needs to approve it.
This is NFL Network and ESPN.
Right. That there were rumblings that they were going to do what they needed to do to appease the current administration to get this stuff pushed through. So at the very least, I know there were people that felt like it was bad optics that they were canceling that event, and that they had a photo op with the president, if you remember, to announce the 2027 draft in the Oval Office. That was the first photo op that a sitting commissioner has done with the president in 22 years. So you had the combination of the merger, the diversity event getting canceled, and then the photo op with the president all happening at once. So there were people that put those pieces together. So I think there are big picture questions that need to be asked on the Rooney Rule. Another uncomfortable question is what we all saw with the Epstein files on Friday, right? Multiple NFL owners named. Obviously, one I think was on a completely different level than the rest. How does Steve Tish's involvement in the Epstein files affect his ownership of the Giants going forward? And then the third uncomfortable question, I think, is more of a football question, which would be the state of officiating. Because I do think to some degree, it's just there's not enough I don't know how you guys feel watching it, but I cover this stuff for a living. And it's hard for me to tell. And I know how this stuff works. It's hard for me to tell who's making the decisions. You know, so like the lack of transparency, especially when you're doing business with the gambling companies the way that you are now, does there need to be more transparency? I've advocated, like I think, and this isn't on the officials themselves, but I think they've just continued to pile new technology on top of new technology on top of new technology, rule change on top of rule change on top of rule change. They've tangled it up and made it so hard for the officials to adjudicate the game out there. And to me, it's like, you've seen what it looks like at field level. It's a blur.
Oh, my God.
You have to train your eyes to look for things. And if you're giving guys 15 new things to look at every year, points of emphasis, rules changes, and then on top of that, they know Big Brother's watching, right? They've got the camera watching, and so they've got that in their head. It just feels like this is something where we have all this technology now. Maybe it's time to rebuild the thing altogether, right? And figure out a better way to use the technology, because just taking the old system and piling technology on top of it, I don't think is working.
They need to subtract. I keep saying stop adding, start subtracting.
And that's what I'm saying. Tear it down to the studs and like find a more efficient way.
Can we
to use
listen?
The technology.
Do you think we'll get to the point where we get to listen what the conversation is during a replay?
It's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that.
The ACC is doing. I've said it for years. If you have nothing to hide,
right?
If we're all in it together to get it right, let's listen. Like the Broncos interception, like that's not even reviewed, I don't think.
I mean, it was so quick, and that was the problem Sean McDermott had with it, right? It wasn't that like they.
But even with the timeout, though,
right? And he tried to, and but it just felt like it was rushed through, right? And so, like, what's the process there? And I do think, I mean, maybe you don't give it to the fans in the moment, but you give it to them at some point. I mean, I don't know. I guess the downside to that would be potentially vilifying an individual, vilifying an official. That said, that's what happens to the coaches and players on a weekly basis.
But we don't remember you if you get it right. We remember if you get it wrong.
Right.
So if it exonerates you, now I know that, go back to the Rams and the Saints in that game.
The pass interference call.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a helmet to the head
Yep.
as well. They could have called two things. If you put together an all-star officiating crew, nobody wants to rat out somebody else and say, you missed the call, and you can ask for help. And I think if you have your team together that you're with the whole year, you got my back.
Yep.
I'm not going to remember you if you get the call right. I'll remember if you get the call wrong, and I think that's what the NFL needs to do.
And I think that's why I've always advocated for the Sky Judge, like having that person be a part of the crew in the stadium.
Yeah,
right.
I'm fine
that
with
person
that.
should be there.
Yeah.
And like I just think having the man behind the curtain in New York, who may or may not be worried about what public perception is going to be on Monday or Tuesday, like having an experienced official in the booth as part of the equation when it comes to the on-field crew, and they're accountable to each other, and that guy up in the booth, like he has to see the coaches before the game on the field. He's accountable to the coaches. He's accountable to the players too. I felt like that was an answer, maybe not the answer, but one of the answers that we could get to all.